Alrighty folks, it's been a minute, but welcome back to Funliner News. I've been on tour with the Blue Knights, so I haven't been able to make as many of these videos, but arguably the most important show of the season just happened in San Antonio at the DCI Southwestern Championship. And it was the first time we got to see virtually all of the corps compete in the same arena on the same day. And boy, did this regional not disappoint. There were tons of surprises and underdogs and shocking results, and today we're going to break down all of that for you right here on Funliner News. So let's jump right into it. So we're going to break this recap down into a couple categories, starting first with the big winners. There were several corps that came out of this regional with a definite W in the win column, starting with the Spirit of Atlanta, who ended up in 14th at this regional after their 16th place finish last year. That's a great improvement for them. Notably, they grabbed an 11th place from one of the music analysis judges as well. So great job to the Spirit of Atlanta. Also, a corps with a big win from this weekend was my team, the Blue Knights. They ended this regional in 11th place after finishing the season last year 4 places below in 14th. This was a huge win for BK, with them also grabbing 10th place in both percussion and brass. They were also voted fan favorite at this show, so just a lot to celebrate over here at the Blue Knights, and shout out to you guys. Very proud of you for all your hard work. I'll see you soon. Moving on to the Cavaliers, who ended in 9th after finishing in 11th place last season. On the recap, not surprisingly, they ended in 7th place in the percussion category, but that score is unfortunately countered by their 15th place in brass. But overall, a good place for the Cavaliers to be at this midpoint in the season. And last but not least, we have the Santa Clara Vanguard, who walked away from San Antonio with a huge win over the Blue Devils, ending in 3rd place, knocking the Blue Devils out of the top 3. If you look at the score sheet, Vanguard actually ended up 2nd place overall in music, which really gave them this win over the Blue Devils. Notably, SCV got 2s across the board in brass and was 2nd to Boston in percussion by only 0.1, also winning the achievement subcaption. So we might even have this underdog story of Vanguard potentially walking away with the Jim Ott Brass Award and the Fred Sanford come finals, which honestly is insane and super exciting to think about. But it is important to remember that SCV only did beat the Blue Devils by a very small margin of 0.075. So they are by no means slotted in the top 3. I anticipate there'll be a bunch of flip-flopping between these two corps throughout the season in this fight for the medal. Okay, now moving on to the corps that missed the mark, starting with, as we just discussed, the Blue Devils. The Blue Devils, for the first time in a very long time, ended outside the top 3 at a regional. And this certainly sends out some alarm bells maybe as to where this corps may be heading. They did end up beating SCV in both GE and visual, but they have quite the fight ahead of them to stay in the battle for top 3. Their lowest score on the sheets was a 6th place from music analysis judge Jay Kennedy, and their highest was 3rd place in color guard. But I will say, as someone who has done 4 seasons with the Blue Devils, get your bias comments ready, I don't think any other corps has quite the same ability to evolve and peak at just the right time than the Blue Devils. For example, in 2019, when I was marching at the Blue Devils, we spent virtually the entire season losing to the Bluecoats until literally semifinals, when we beat them, and then we all know how that season ended. So all I'm saying is don't count out the Blue Devils just yet, but on paper, it's definitely not looking good. So moving on to Carolina Crown. They struggled here in San Antonio, ending in 6th place with their worst score being a 7th place in guard and their best a 4th place in music analysis. But notably, Matt Harloff's famous Carolina Crown Brass ended up stuck in 5th place with a 5th in content and a 7th in achievement, which you could look at as a good thing. Essentially, the judges are saying the book is difficult, but the players aren't matching that in execution. But there's plenty of season left for Carolina Crown to get better, and they will get better, so we'll have to wait and see. And our last corps who just missed the mark was the Madison Scouts, who ended in 13th, just outside of the top 12, but a whole 1.45 points behind the Colts, who ended in 12th. They are going to have quite the battle ahead of them if they want to make it back into finals this year, and a large part of that battle will be in the music caption, as they finished 15th overall in music in San Antonio. So best of luck to Madison, and we'll see how that journey comes along as we head into the final part of the season. Now, of course, I did not forget to talk about the 2 big dogs at the top of the competition. Boston Crusaders continued their undefeated streak. Yes, undefeated, just like every other core that has won since COVID, with a huge win in their first competition against the Bluecoats, scoring a 93.213. That's a .388 margin over the second place Bluecoats. Now, before we talk about the numbers, it is important to note that for this regional, there was a double panel, which essentially means there's 2 extra general effect judges and also an extra music analysis judge, which is also what they do at finals. But back to the Boston Crusaders. In the visual caption, they won visual proficiency but ended in second place to the Bluecoats in both visual analysis and color guard, giving them a total of 27.75. which is still only 0.05 behind the Bluecoats' total visual score. The music caption is really where the Boston Crusaders shine, winning every caption, including a very notable win in percussion over the reigning percussion champs, SCV. And this music caption is where the Boston Crusaders really beat the Bluecoats, because the Bluecoats ended up in third, losing to SCV, giving up 0.488 points to the Boston Crusaders. But now let's look at the most important caption, which is general effect. All 4 GE judges were pretty much split down the line between the Bluecoats and the Boston Crusaders, with the Bluecoats actually winning GE overall, but by only 0.05. But if you look closer at the subcaptions, the Boston Crusaders ended up winning 5 of those subcaptions, and the Bluecoats won the other 3. However, 4 out of 5 of those subcaptions that the Boston Crusaders won were on the performance side of the sheet. Which, if you don't know, what that essentially means is that the judges at this particular show felt that the Bluecoats' repertoire had a higher ceiling than the Boston Crusaders, but Boston performed their repertoire at a higher level than the Bluecoats. So that's pretty much what happened at the San Antonio Super Regional. But let's now look into the future at the paths that these 2 cores need to take to end up with a trophy at the end of the season. In regards to the Bluecoats, their ceiling is pretty high, especially in the general effect category. If you were to take the score in the repertoire subcaption and match that with the score in the performance subcaption, the Bluecoats would have ended up with a general effect score of 37.7, and Boston with a score of 37.2. That's a full 0.5 boost for the Bluecoats, which would have resulted in a win for them by just only 0.12 at this regional. So, for the Bluecoats, as they continue to develop their show, their execution needs to match that development for them to be able to have a chance to beat Boston. But honestly, the greatest weakness for the Bluecoats right now, in my opinion, is the music. It's the only caption that they lost to the Boston Crusaders, but that loss was big enough to push them out of first place. They don't even need to win brass or percussion, they just need to be in second in order for them to push past Boston. Now, on the other side, for the Boston Crusaders to win, I think they really need to have something special up their sleeve for finals week. The thing about Boston is that they are so clean. Their excellence in execution is their effect. But by the time finals comes around, there is a danger that they will be passed up by some of these other cores who find their peak on the execution side of the sheet at the end of the season. So for Boston, I think that they may need to have some sort of new ending or some wow moment or effect in their show that will propel them through that final stretch of the season. And adding that special something will increase their content side of the score sheet and won't allow for the Bluecoats to sneak up on them in the end. But what do you guys think? Who do you have your money on? Can the Boston Crusaders hold their lead and be the 4th undefeated core in a row to win the championship? Or are the Bluecoats playing the long game, waiting to peak at the right moment? Or be the blue shell at the end of the race, as Alan likes to call it. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And until next time, my name is Everett Kim, and this is Funliner News. Thank you for watching.